Hello, everyone. The Dubai Business Classics is back. This is the podcast where we showcase and celebrate Dubai based businesses and entrepreneurs. Today, we will be talking about the auctioneering business. And for this specific subject, I know no one better than Carl van Rosenveldt. Carl, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Pedro. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Good. Thanks for having me on. Honestly, it's a great initiative that you've got going here, and I wish you many, many success with it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Carl, you are someone that is very used to being in front of the crowd, selling and auctioneering all sorts of things. Is there anything that you think you cannot sell?
Well, I think, everything is about supply and demand, and it's quite weird when you look at your market and customers out there of what the demand is for certain things. So to answer your question, no, I believe everything is sellable out there because people have got some very weird interests and things that they're after in life that might not be appeal to me or you or anybody else. But to me, there's always a buyer out there somewhere.
And how do you find arguments to sell stuff that you would never buy yourself?
I think it's just at the end of the day, I do work on a commission basis. So if there's money to be made, I'm out there trying to make it. And I just kind of think that, when you look at these type of items out there in the market before you list them and so forth, you've always got to think to yourself that there is a market out there. And ultimately, I think, at these auctions is to get the right type of people that you are catering for, and ultimately you will then have a sale. You'll have a happy seller and you'll have a happy buyer. And us in the business, that's what we look at doing at the end of the day.
So how many years have you been an auctioneer?
Well, I've been in Dubai for 17 years, and prior to that, I was doing it for about 4 years. So it kind of started off by chance. I always used to attend auctions as a young kid with my dad, and somehow it became a bit of a passion of mine. And I started getting up on the block, as they would say, doing a couple of auctions. And then a friend of mine, when we finished university, we actually started a small business where we used to do charity auctions. And we used to basically source sports memorabilia. And the best way of selling sports memorabilia is at charity auctions. And we kind of brought a charity angle to it. And it was also an easy way for us to sell the memorabilia, because on an evening you could move 20, 30 items depending on how big the charity auction was. And kind of that's how I got going into it. And then, looked at expanding my career and ended up on the cruise ships in the Caribbean selling art. Which was a much tougher sell because it's not just full on selling, but you got to kind of educate customers or passengers in that case that are coming to it, and that was a totally different side of the business. And then obviously coming out to Dubai, I didn't actually come out here as an auctioneer, but I think you kind of know the story where we had a mate that unfortunately lost his life here in Dubai, and they were looking to raise funds for him from all different angles, and they somehow found out that I've done auctions before, and that's kind of how I launched my auctioneering career in Dubai, by doing charity auctions, and then saw a gap in the market where we kind of replicated what we were doing in South Africa with the charity auctions, sports memorabilia, and then I think that just kind of grew into bigger and better things, should I say, where we now do auctions where we have 700 to 1,000 lots of equipment, be it movables, be it whatever the case might be. So I think from that perspective, we started off small, but we're looking at catering for a wider majority of the Dubai market now.
So you have a company that is called Auctions ME.
Yeah.
And when was the year that you founded the company?
Well, we kind of started in 2011,
2011.
When I say we started, I think that's kind of where the idea behind the whole auctioneering business started with when we started raising monies for John O'Beaton. And, it's amazing word of mouth and contacts. And, then you started getting approached by more and more people. And, I just thought that there's a good opportunity for me to kind of expose myself out there. And I thought that the business idea that we had, it's still going today. It's still a very, very good idea, because it costs any customer or charity or organization, it doesn't cost them anything to use our services. It's absolutely for free. Of course, we need to make margin, and we make margin on the items that we sell, and that profit we share with any organization that's looking to raise funds. So I think it's a win-win situation for all parties. And I think, we've done very, very well over the, what are we now, 14 years that we've been doing it.
I've been to several events where you were auctioning several items, and I think that not only this brings revenue to these organizations that do these events, but it also produces a very great piece of entertainment, because it becomes like one of the moments of the night or of the day of that event, that particular event, that people look forward to. And there's great excitement in the room when the auction is going. And I see that the way you do it, you play with people's emotions, and you keep the pace going in a very incredible way.
Yeah, I think, the way we try and do it is that we want to make it exciting, because most of the people are coming to a black tie dinner, not really to an auction. Let's be perfectly honest. And we normally got a 15 to 30 minute window that we've got to obviously produce in. And I think the one way that we look at doing it, or certainly I look at doing it, is we're trying to make it exciting. We try and make people participate in it. We want them to feel part of it. We want them to feel that they're contributing to it. And then at the end of the day, whatever charity we're supporting, we want them to make the most money. So I think the way we've been approaching it, and it's been working very, very well, it's high energy. It's people that are in the audience that didn't think anything about it or didn't know anything about an auction, that all of a sudden feel, I want to be part of it. This is quite a cool thing happening. And I think with the interaction of people and getting them involved in it, even if they've bid on something and they didn't get the bid, it's really a good way of adding to the event that might have just been a boring black tie dinner that you would have had a couple of drinks at and a few dances,
I feel like there's a lot of people that want to participate on the bidding, but they don't want to spend the money. Can you tell when you have some of these people in the room or not? They start at the beginning and then they drop out quickly.
But the thing is, you need those type of people. You kind of need to get the bidding going. And I think often that people, it's very emotional, and there's often people's competitiveness, and that's what we kind of pull out, because even myself, when I attend auctions, that I don't intend to buy anything when I go there, but all of a sudden, as I always say, when the juices start flowing, the reactions become totally different. And what I try and do is, especially if there's two different parties in the room or whatever the case might be, is kind of trying to beat them up against each other. You obviously got to do it in a very polite way. You don't want to intrude on people. You don't want to feel that you're pushing them in a direction they don't really want to go. So it's you got to read the crowd all the time, especially when you're doing a fundraising like that, because at the end of the day, you want the people to have a good experience, but you don't want a situation where the guy has regretted what he's done, or he's used his life savings to buy a Wayne Rooney shirt or a Cristiano Ronaldo boot or whatever the case might be. So it's just kind of a fine art, and I kind of can see with my experience now that when a guy's kind of had enough, and I won't heckle him anymore, I'll kind of move away from him, because as I said, you never ever want to get into a situation where a guy comes
putting
to
him on the spot for the wrong reasons.
Exactly.
Very good. It's definitely a great skill. And one of the things that I've always wondered is, how does one discover that he has this talent? How does one all of a sudden think, oh, I could be an auctioneer? But obviously you said at the beginning that you used to go with your dad, and that kind of maybe woke up the instinct in you. Do you think
Yeah, I think it's, I think the one thing is that you kind of, you gotta like the aspect of being in front of people. If you stage fright, or you're not as confident as other people, I think you might struggle, because and then obviously there's a certain skill set to how you're going to sell something or how you're going to approach something, because each auction is very different. But I wouldn't recommend to anybody that's an introverted type of person, that doesn't like being in front of crowds, that doesn't like to be the center of attention, then I wouldn't really say it's the job for you. But also saying that, then you could work in another department of auctioneering. You could source products, you could be customer service, you could do pricing, whatever the case might be, but you won't be the front man. So I think there's a place for certain different personalities within the auction business. But I think, to your point, if you want to be call it the main man up there, you've got to have a certain, persona about yourself, a certain personality about yourself.
And the ability to speak at the pace that you speak when you're doing an auction, and I feel like you never run out of words, and you keep the momentum going all the time. That is a skill in itself. I think you could be a rapper if you.
Probably make a lot more money. Yeah, I think it's you know, and you must probably only seen me do the more social side of the auctions, but I think that, you know, it's kind of the package, as you said, that you've got to deliver, and you kind of need to know, you know, where to push, what to combine, and then obviously you need to keep track of the numbers that you're bidding at. And those type of auctions, generally, you might laugh at me now, but the bidding is a lot slower because you kind of get the crowd more involved in it because it's more of an emotional auction. But for example, where I'm auctioning off a digger loader, it's not so back and forth with the customer. It's more a business-like, business-like type of auction. But I think it's important to be able to do both. As you said, the call it the charity side or the social side. It's definitely a lot more of a fun event than when you got, you know, 300 or 400 items that you got to get through in the course of a day, and it's you know, it's just kind of full on bidding.
Believe it or not, I have actually worked in auctions when I was young back in Portugal.
Okay.
It was car auctions.
Yeah.
And we used to have like a car park with, I don't know, 200 cars. And me and my friends, our job was to start the car. Sometimes we needed to use the booster and bring them on in the right order. And we would drive the cars all the way to the backstage, and then one of the girls would like drive it in, and that car would go on auction, and it was super fast. Like
Pedro, you should have told me you're able to do this. We're always looking for these type of people to bring cars. Okay, are you able to manage heavy equipment?
Yeah, no. This was I used to do this once a week for a bit of pocket money when I was still in university, but I don't see myself doing that again. So in terms of like the different types of auctions that you do, you mentioned correctly that I've seen you in a few of these gala dinners that happen in Dubai with fundraising, where people sell mainly sports memorabilia. But what else do you do? Do you do these locker room like we see on?
So I think the other main thing that we focus on are big equipment auctions. So we run them mainly out of Abu Dhabi, where ultimately you'll see things like dump trucks, cranes, a lot of construction equipment, because there's a big demand for construction companies within the GCC, as per se, where, you know, they would buy a lot of equipment for a certain project. The project's now done and dusted. They're looking to liquidate it. It's a quick way to liquidate, you know, 300, 400, 500 items, whatever you might have. And so we kind of do 4 of those auctions a year. They're big auctions. They're auctions that sometimes last 2 days, where, as I mentioned, we do 300 to 400 items a day. So that's a very, very big focus of us. And then also, as you mentioned, the cars. You know, there's a lot of car rental companies within Dubai. There's also, for example, certain fleets where they've got to get rid of stock, where either they're chasing money, or, you know, the cars are getting too old, the mileage are getting too old from a car rental perspective, and then we will liquidate it through the auction. So those are kind of the 3 aspects that so
no storage lockers.
Not as per se. We've kind of looked into that. It's kind of a lot more tricky from a legal perspective within the GCC. We've spoken to, you know, Dubai ports, because there's a lot of things that get stored there.
Yeah.
So it's not really been a focus on us. But I think the way we're looking to drive the business, and this is, you know, maybe I'm speaking a little bit before the time, but this is something that we're really going to be focusing on now, is that we are finding there's a lot of people looking to sell a lot of things in a rush. And what I mean by that is, you're tired of doing the Dubizzle thing where somebody's calling you, you can't understand what he's saying, he can't understand what you're saying, the times don't match, etc., etc. So we're actually looking at driving the business now through Auctions Me, where we'll run a 24-hour online, where it will be focused on household goods. And instead of you listing it on Dubizzle, you'll have 2 options with us. And we're looking to launch this within the next 6 months, where you would basically come to us and we'll offer you a flat rate for whatever you might be selling. You can choose to accept that or not, or otherwise you can list with us free of charge, and we will run that online for you. And then we will arrange the pickup of your goods, and then from our warehouses, whoever's the successful bidder can collect. Because I just feel that at this moment in time, I've experienced this too. If it's golf clubs we're trying to get rid of, if it's a dining room table or whatever the case is, because we a society that really moves quite a lot within the GCC, you're always looking to get rid of things, and you're also always looking to buy things. And I just think that yes, Dubizzle is a great platform, but it's not always the easiest way to, do the transaction. And I kind of just think that if you can create an easier platform to do that, it will be, a lot more, what should I say? It's a lot more easier process for the person buying and selling. So that's something that we're looking into now. We're actually running a few trial runs to really see if we can capture that part of the market. At the end of the day, as well as I do from a business sense, perspective, it needs to be able to make us revenue. So we're going to need quite a bit of scale, because the items that you're working with are a much lower, price than if I'm selling a digger loader for $500,000.
It needs to be very transactional.
Exactly. So that's kind of how that would be, I'd say, our next step, where our focus will move to now.
Very good. And the traditional auctions that you do, how many of these do you do in a month?
So I think,
there's high season and there's low season.
Yeah, I think so. So with the big ones that we're looking at doing is we do 4 a year. And the reason why we only do 4 years, because it takes quite a long time to bring items in. We make sure all the items are within the yard, that people can come view them at least a week before the auction starts, because the policy is you can bring your own mechanic, you can view all the equipment, vehicles, etc. And there's documentation that needs to change. It's quite a lengthy process. So those ones we run 4 a year, but they're big auctions. As I said, you must really looking at about 1,000 items per auction that we're looking to do, minimum of about 500. And then the car auctions we must really run every 2 months, just depending on the stock availability. So that's kind of
the sports memorabilia.
That's very seasonal. So I mean, we would do up to two to three auctions a month, from the month of November to kind of April. And then it's in the summer months, as well as I do from an events perspective, there's not really much happening. So, we might do one or two, here and there. To give you an example, I'll do one after the World Cup. We do a big fundraiser for Grosvenor House. So we'll be part of that happening just directly after the World Cup. And then I think we've got another 3 more lined up. And then the season really goes quiet from that perspective.
How about margins? Is this standard across this industry, or each person asks for what they think deserve? Or
it just kind of depends. So what we do is, from the charity side of things, is we've got a reserve on every item. We've obviously put a margin into that. It varies. A margin can be from 15% to 25%, depending on what the item is. And then the deal that we will make with the charity or the event organizer is that anything above the reserve price, they make for themselves. And normally it works out very, very well. I mean, they would make, goodness gracious, it could be, 100%, whatever the case might be from that perspective. If we move into the more serious side of the auctions, when I talk about the big items, anything under $2,000, we will charge a commission of 10%, and then anything above that, it works on 8%. So just depending on what the item is. So that's generally the margins that we're working on from the different, what should I say, the different types of auctions that we are offering.
Is property something that ever came on your radar, or no? There's no auctions for that type of.
To be honest with you, there hasn't really been much demand in Dubai for it. They have started doing it online now. It's quite difficult to get the actual licenses to do property. But as I said, from our perspective, we open to look at anything. That hasn't really been a focus for us. But I truly believe that as Dubai matures, I think that eventually we will start seeing more and more property auctions, live property auctions. I mean, if you look at developed markets like Australia, the States, a lot of properties, even South Africa at this moment in time, a lot of properties are actually getting sold on live auctions. So I think as the market starts maturing, as there's more and more stock available, I mean, at the moment, you don't need to have an auction in Dubai. Properties moving so quick, they hardly got it listed and it's sold. But I do believe, and I think you've hit a very valid point there, that eventually it will move to the live auction market too.
Interesting. And do you think that in the Middle East region, is Dubai the most active place when it comes to auctions, or is there other parts of the GCC or the Middle East where you think there's more activity in terms of number of auctions, number of items? Where do you see your industry the most developed?
Yeah, I definitely think, Dubai at this moment in time. I think one of the things that make it quite easy in Dubai is because obviously you've got the free zone, be it Kizad or be it Jafsa. So it's a lot easier to move goods in and out. And especially when you've got our premises are set up in the free zone. So there's a lot of things that you avoid VAT. A lot of these guys that are coming to auctions are exporting them to various countries. It's actually quite interesting where we've got a lot of these buyers coming in and literally all they do is move equipment around the world. So, operating in a free zone, it's much easier for them. But I think like everything in the GCC, we are seeing a lot more interest from Saudi Arabia. And I think as the kingdom keeps growing and if they continue with their aggressive plans, especially from, a construction perspective, we will definitely see more and more business moving, towards Saudi Arabia. I think the thing that's also, that people need to know out there, it's not like they're just issuing these licenses left, right, and center, especially from a free zone perspective. So it's quite a difficult license to get, and I think that's why it's just probably an industry that's developing a little bit slower than what a lot of other industries are developing within the GCC.
What is the category on your trade license?
I think it just it just depends on what you're exactly wanting to do. But I mean, from our perspective, we've got equipment, et cetera, that we can move in with the jurisdiction of the GCC.
Okay, very interesting. So, in terms of growing your business, it sounds like the online component is the one that you're working at the moment.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I want the business to run while I'm sleeping. I think that I just feel that we've done well, but if we want to keep evolving, that we kind of got to diversify ourselves a bit, where it was very focused on big items. But I think that if we get the scale on smaller, lower priced items, making it easier for the consumer to trade goods, that's one way that we can really grow the business. And I think also that we are basically giving people an opportunity to come trade in your things for fixed cash. And look here, it might not be the price that you want, but we know how it is if you need to move country or things, you kind of get into a squeeze. Or, I mean, I've been in situations where I've got to be out of an apartment at a certain date and I just want somebody to come collect the couch. I'll give it away for free. So I think there's a lot of those opportunities that us as Auctions Me really want to start jumping onto, because we've seen it happening. And every year I go, okay, I want to look into it now and I want to look into it. But we're actually actively really, really looking into that now. And expanding our services that we can offer to the everyday household person. That if you're sitting in your house and you need if it's a dining room chair or if it's a podcast studio or whatever the case is, you can come onto our site and I'm sure you'll be able to find something that is going to be carefree. It's going to be easy for you to buy and it's going to be easy for you to access. And that's kind of what we're looking at developing for the consumers of Dubai. And then, as you say, you never know. Hopefully, grow that out towards the GCC. But as I said, we're testing the business model now, and if the business model makes sense, which I'm sure it will, then we can really go aggressively from a marketing perspective and really growing it.
Now, do you have your own storage facility? Do you keep stock or?
Well, that's the thing is, so the whole idea is that we actually don't hold stock, because obviously there's a big cost within stock. So the whole idea is bring it in and move it out. But what we have looked at, and this is where the business model that we're busy testing at the moment, is that we kind of feel that there might be a big opportunity for us to take some risk on stock. And what I mean by that is that, to your point, I buy your dining room table that's worth 1,000 for 100 because you just literally want to get rid of it, but you want to get something for it.
You want to take that free couch.
Exactly what I'm saying. So I just think that if we offer that kind of trade-in service where people know, look here, I'm not going to get my desired price, but I'm going to get some money out of it. I think there's big opportunity from that perspective. So that's something that we will start bringing in. And as I said, we're kind of in a testing phase at this moment in time, just to see that it makes pure business sense for us. Because at the end of the day, there's storage cost, there's capital that you got to lay into these type of things, and it's it's got to make sense at the end of the day for us.
And is it a very competitive business? Is there many companies like yours?
I think it's anything that you do, it's competitive. I think from heavy equipment perspective, there's not too many companies. I'd say there's 2 to 3 main companies that are doing it. But there's only so much business. Whatever you do within the GCC, the cake is only so big, and everything depends on what part of that cake you're going to get. So though there's not so many competitive, it's still very, very competitive. And the big thing with us is we're very reliant on reoccurring business, and that's where your services have to be up to scratch. You need to pay your suppliers on time. That's very, very important. You need to manage your cash flow. So there's a lot of factors in that, because if you're not going to get that reoccurring business, then ultimately you're not going to have a business. So I think that's very important from our perspective, from a reputation perspective, that even if it's at an event or whatever, that you've had a good experience working with me, because you're going to continue hosting your event. And I want to be the first, kind of name on your list when it comes to a fundraising effort that, look here, we've had a great experience with these guys. We want to keep using them. We've had a great experience selling our car with these guys. We want to keep using them. So
overall, do you think you're usually the number one on that list, or is there maybe a guy like Tom Hercott there, who's a good friend of yours?
Yes,
he's a good auctioneer, isn't he?
He's very good. They've used him, quite often too, and that's just the competitive world that we live in. Yes, there are other good people out there, and I think you've mentioned one of the best examples. So there will always be competition, and I believe you can't win everything, but if we win 80% of what we're dwelling into, then we're doing all right. That's kind of where I set the mark. But I think competition is healthy. I think we kind of got a mindset in the GCC that everybody's always about monopolies. They just want to control everything from A to Z. And my mindset's totally different. That I think that competition is healthy, because the minute you got competition, you're always looking at ways how you can improve yourself, how you can become more efficient, what you need to do. I think it kind of makes you hungrier, where if you're just kind of running the monopoly, you get a little bit lazy, you get a little bit comfortable. And I think at the end of the day, the consumer ends up losing, because they kind of got to be put up with what you're offering them. And,
of course,
often what you're offering them might not be, the best thing or best deal or best experience for them. And to me, it's important to keep evolving.
Competition is healthy. So, how did you end up on a Netflix series?
I was waiting for this. Quite interesting. I was given a call. I was actually on vacation. I was given a call, and they said, we are looking for an auctioneer for an event. We cannot disclose anything to you. You need to sign an NDA. And it's all we can tell you is it's a series we're shooting for a very well-known media outlet, as per se. So I said, look, I need to know a little bit more. I mean, I don't want to get myself into some criminal activity or whatever the case is. So they said, no, it's all legit. The only thing we can tell you is that it's going to be on Netflix. I said, okay, fine. So I signed up for it, and in all honesty, I'm not too up to date with celebrities and so forth in Dubai. And the one thing that they did tell me is when I arrived there, they said, you'll be doing a fundraiser for this influential lady from Saudi Arabia. And I said, okay, fine. And I arrived at the Versace Hotel, and they put me in a back room, and all of a sudden things started getting going. And I said, oh, what's this lady's name? And they mentioned her name to me. And like you do, you Google them, and I think she had about 7 million or 8 million followers on Instagram, whatever the case is. And I was like, okay, she's obviously the real deal type of thing. And in all honesty, Pedro, I did the auction how I would normally do it.
Yeah.
There was a live audience in front of me. I honestly thought it was a very exclusive fundraiser for a very influential lady from Saudi Arabia that invited a couple of key people. And I think we actually did very, very well out of the auction. I think we might have raised 60 or 70,000 on the evening. I can't quite remember. And I kind of left it at that.
They even praise you on the episode, saying, "Oh, how good was the auctioneer?"
They seemed to. I wasn't invited back for Bling 2 though, so I'm not too sure. Mind you, they didn't have auction. And I think about 6 or 8 months later, somebody gave me a call and they said, "What the hell are you doing on Dubai Bling?" And I'll be honest with you, at that stage, I had no idea it was called Dubai Bling. And
did it take quite a bit of time from when it was shot to then when it was.
Yeah, as I said, it was about a six to 8 month period, and I kind of forgotten about it. And anyway, I think it was 43 seconds of stardom on Dubai Bling 1. It was. And,
do you think it's helped your business?
I think I think it definitely helped. I think it kind of put us out there a little bit more than what I think kind of helped me as a personality per se. Where a lot of people go, "Oh, you're the guy from Dubai Bling." So I wouldn't say it's
Mr. Bling.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's made me money that I can retire, but it's definitely helped. Yeah, for sure.
Very good, very good. And do you have any other interesting things coming up that you might not have signed that NDA for that we can reveal?
No, I think at this moment in time, it's business as usual. I hope the next time I sit and chat here with you, we can kind of give you some more insights onto how this 24-hour online auction business is going, because that's something that we're really working hard on at this moment in time. But Pedro, I think I've most probably got a couple of exciting dump trucks if you're into that at the next auction to auction off. But no, nothing like a featured Dubai Bling program or anything like that. Nothing of that coming up as yet.
Very good. So this online auction platform, once it's up and running online, it will become very easy to expand it to other geographic locations, right?
Yeah, as I said, that's kind of the idea. With all these things, there's a lot of testing. Payment gateways aren't always the easiest things to do. So before we kind of launch it to the masses, if I can put it as such, there's a lot of teething issues that we're working with at the moment, and I just kind of feel that with these type of things, you've got one opportunity. If you don't get the timing right and the product's not 100% correct when you launch, it's difficult for people, and we've had experiences like that before. We've done something, the product wasn't the way it should be, and all of a sudden people are going, your login process takes too long, I'm uninterested, or why do you want all these personal details from me, or I don't want to share this with you. And this is kind of all feedback that we've taken. So the process needs to be as streamlined as possible. Some people would say when we've done it before, oh, I feel like you're trying to catch me in something. So, all this type of feedback we've taken. And I just think that, even if I have to wait a year, I want to make sure that the product is 100%, because I just feel that with all these things, you would know, you've been in the space a lot where you're launching new products to market, and especially when it's digital and technical products, if it's not 100%, I kind of feel you've got one chance, and if you don't capture that consumer, they don't have that experience that they want, you kind of lose them, and to get them back, it's very, very difficult.
And even if you get your model 100% bulletproof, don't you feel like there's a certain amount of exposure when it comes to the authenticity of the items being sold? Like if it's online, if it's someone that is trying to use your platform to sell something, how do you know that if it's the real deal, right?
You make a very good point there, and that's why the process is actually taking a lot longer, because we've spoken to a lot of people and people that are experiencing this, where we will have to have an inspection process, because to your point, once again, and I know this has happened to a lot of people, where even from the likes of the big Amazon or these online platforms, where you get buyers on there and they're selling, it could be fake, it could be something that's broken or whatever the case is. So we will have a check process in there, because I think that's very, very important, that when you are buying something from a company, you obviously want to get exactly what the item says,
or at least a guarantee of a refund if it's not the real deal.
100%. So those are all things that, and I think this is a process that takes long, because you test and you get different feedback from people, and people are telling you this and that and the other. But I think it's all very, very important, because once again, alluding to, if you've had a bad experience and you've bought something that's fake or it's broken or whatever the case is, I've lost you as a customer. Word of mouth to me is still one of the most powerful advertising tools. You're going to tell 7 of your mates, when you're sitting watching a football game or whatever the case might be, and all of a sudden I've got 10 potential customers that are going, well, just let's wait on, maybe we won't use this guy, maybe we'll use somebody else. And I think, that's, from our perspective, very important.
And a lot of times the feedback is passed by people that have never even tried it.
Exactly. So,
yeah, that's
so yeah. So that's, as I said, that's something why we're kind of very focused to really get that spot on.
That's the risk. So, Carl, for the people at home that are thinking of starting a business in this market in Dubai, what would be your kind of like generic advice, knowing what you know today after being here for so many years, involved in many different things? You're a person with many different hats, but overall an entrepreneur and a businessman. What do you think when it comes to the market itself, the characteristics, the size, the way of doing business? What would be your best advice?
Look, I think at the end of the day, Dubai, and I will always say that it's a land of opportunity, but I think there's a couple of things that I would always advise people, depending on what business you're going to do. Always make sure you got enough money in the bank, because often things drag you a lot longer than what you expect, and you can get yourself into big trouble. And once you get yourself into big trouble, from a financial perspective, it's not easy to get out. You know, we let's be honest, the region doesn't have the support systems like Europe has, where you can file for bankruptcy or all these type of things. So I just always say, if you've got an idea, I would make sure you've got sufficient funds to keep you going, because if it's registration of a business license, if it's getting products in, if it's getting cars registered, whatever the case might be, is that the process will always take longer than what you expect. So give yourself more time. I think that's to me the most important thing that I've really learned here, that if you sometimes don't have the funds when you need it, you miss out on big opportunities. So from that perspective, timing is very, very important. And I just think that you need to have a very persistent, strong-willed attitude, because you get told a lot of different things here. And if you're kind of not focused on where you need to be, you will give up very quickly, because a lot of people here will tell you that, no, you cannot do this, or this is the wrong way, or that's the wrong way. And a lot of people get very frustrated. I've experienced this myself, where, you know, you might be applying for something, or you're looking to put a bid in for something, or whatever the case might be, and it's just, you get very despondent. And often, if you don't have a strong enough personality, you know, you will give up. And I think the third thing to me is, which is very, very important, I've been very, very fortunate here in Dubai, is you've got to surround yourself with the right people. You've got to get in with the right crowds. And often that means spending time with people, maybe spending less time with people that you really treasure, or whatever the case might be. But you've got to be selfish to that aspect, because if you're in with the right people here in Dubai, and you're in with the right surroundings, like I always tell people, and you'd know this too, your life becomes easier when it's, you know, Pedro's the big guy of
Getting
this
the right
construction
advice.
company.
Yeah.
I can't get to him. Oh, don't worry, I know this guy who knows this guy. And all of a sudden, they open up that pathway for you, and life becomes so much easier than trying to get through a PA, or trying to work through a office boy, or whatever the case might be. So
Do you think it's a market that, due to its size, relies a lot on relationships and trust?
100%. 100%. I mean, if you look at the numbers in the GCC as per se, it's actually a very small market. Yes, there's a lot of money in this market. The per capita is one of the highest in the world, but it's a very, very small market. And I think what a lot of people do here is, and we spoke about it earlier, is everybody wants to protect themselves. They all want to protect themselves. So their whole aim is, and I find the mindset is, to form the monopoly and kind of build the castle with the walls around, and don't let anybody get in. And often you might have the best idea to really help this organization grow tenfold, it might be, but nobody's giving you that opportunity to get in, because they're so protective, so protective. And if you, once again, get in those right surroundings, get with the right people, you know, you can get a ticket in. And that ticket in could mean, you know, 0 to 0 for you, and it can mean a lot for the organization or whoever else that you're trying to get in with.
I feel that partially what you're saying is that in order to get into those circles, you need to come and add value, not just come in and ask for favors in exchange of nothing.
I always feel that, and this is my experience, that people will do a favor for you, okay? But if you've added no value to it, they're not going to do a favor for you again. So I think the important thing is that you need to be professional at all times. If you're going to ask for a favor, make sure it's you prepared for that favor, and don't let the person who you're giving the favor to get burnt or have a bad experience, because that door will be closed for the rest of your life, to be perfectly honest. And I think that, to me, is very, very important when doing business in GCC, or just business in general, where you become reputable, you've got a good name, and you can speak to whoever the case might be, and you go, yeah, by all means, help Carl. I've helped him before.
And people don't want to take risk.
Exactly.
So when they call you to come and do an auction, they don't call the new guy because they never seen him. They don't know if he's going to do a good job like you. Maybe if they hear good things, if they get advised by someone that they trust, that know their standards, then obviously they might give them an opportunity.
And also, I think the last thing I want to add is, depending on what business you're in, but don't be scared to do things for free if it's the right opportunity. I know of a lot of people. Look, I'm not going to do everything for free. You're not going to do everything for free. We're here to make a living for ourselves. But if it is the right opportunity, it often is the one gap that you need to kind of really grow your personality. I think, just to give you my own experience, that when I arrived here, I did a lot of auctions for free. I guess I had nothing better to do on a Friday night or whatever the case is. And that, that kind of grew my brand as per se. And then people started using me. And to your point, once they were confident that you can do the job for them, then you can put your price on.
Then they want you.
But if I just come and all of a sudden slap a price of what I want, and I'm not willing to do it for anything less, then often I'll lose out to a guy like Tom, or whoever the case might be, or whoever else is Tom out there. So I think, for anybody young coming in here, don't always want to charge and be paid for things when you don't have that experience or that know-how or whatever the case might be.
And expect to be paid the same as the best guy in the industry that has got like the trust of the market.
100%.
Very good, Carl. That's been very, very interesting. I loved having this chat with you and learning a little bit more about your business and your industry. Thank you so much for coming.
It's always a pleasure. Wishing you all the best with your podcast. I hope you grow to many, many followers, and it's been an absolute pleasure being on here.
Thank you.
Cheers.
And that brings us to an end of this episode. And thank you so much for tuning in and following us. And we'll be back soon with more stories, more entrepreneur, and more businesses to talk about. Thank you very much.